Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is Tennessee State University, and we're fortunate to have with us the president of Tennessee State University. And of course, Dr. Glover, let me welcome you to the show this morning, and to remind our audience that your name is Dr. Glender Glover, the president of Tennessee State University, and we might say that you've been a very, very active president at Tennessee State University, and some of our audience have asked for you on many times since you've been here, and we're just glad to have you here now, and so that they'll know that we made an attempt to bring Dr. Glenda Glover to our television show, and she simply represents the latest of all of the presidents that our audience has had an opportunity to meet on this particular show, and so we're just glad to have you here. Dr. Glover, before we start, let's see if we can give our audience some background information of your background, your education, and some of your experiences before you got to Tennessee State University, and then after that we'll have a break, and then we'll come back and deal with some other aspects.
Certainly. Thank you very much. It's an honor to have a conversation with you. I always enjoy speaking about Tennessee State University. It has become my favorite subject in the last 2 years. My background, I was born and reared in Memphis, attended public schools in Memphis, Tennessee State undergraduate, finished in 1974. It's just a real honor and a real blessing to come back to the very grounds, the foundation that gave me my start, to now come back in such a wonderful leadership position. It's just an awesome, awesome experience. But on the way to Tennessee State, of course, I went back and got a master's degree from Clark Atlanta, a doctorate from George Washington, and a law degree from Georgetown. And my background also is an accountant. As a professional, I'm an accountant by profession, CPA. And so we need all of those skills into one to come back now to TSU as the president.
And thinking in terms, Dr. Glover, of coming to Tennessee State University and your first experience coming as a student to Tennessee State University, what did you know about Tennessee State University before you arrived here? And certainly not knowing that one day you would be the president of Tennessee State University, but what were some of your thoughts in terms of the opportunities that you felt that you might have had?
Well, as a student, math, I was a math major, and I wanted to be in the honors program, so I graduated with honors and just had a lot of experiences with the honors students and the types of opportunities that a school like TSU offered. I spoke with various companies. I never thought about teaching, really, because I was so interested in going into the corporate world. Higher education came later on in my career, but most of my experiences were public speaking, dancing, doing things that students do on campus, being involved with the panel and the council, those types of activities.
So you arrived at Tennessee State University as a freshman student in what year? And give us an idea in terms of your impression about Tennessee State University.
Oh, I loved it at first sight. I got there, you know, students make decisions based on some form of academic programs. I wanted to major in math. It wasn't so much the math program, it was the individuals that I knew had attended Tennessee State and had done so well in their careers and were influencing me. And it was excitement about having been a student at TSU, and they came back to my church and my community, and they talked it up. So I said, well, let me just go and see what they're talking about. And then my parents could not afford to send me out of state to somewhere else, so I had some limited options at that time, and I chose TSU because I saw what it offered, both educationally, socially, with the versatility that was there. I just enjoyed it all.
And so you landed at Tennessee State University as a freshman student in what year, Dr. Glover?
71.
Now, who was the president of Tennessee State University at that particular time?
Dr. Torrance.
Dr. Torrance?
Torrance, yes.
So what did you think about Dr. Torrance and the faculty that you met at Tennessee State University?
Well, the faculty was so caring and nourishing, I mean, nurturing. And Dr. Torrance was very accessible. He would sit and talk with students in the cafeteria. He was very he was easy to speak with, and he was always around. You wanted to do something that may not have been so acceptable by the standards of the faculty. He was there. You look up and he was standing right there. So he was always there.
Very good. And so, Dr. Glover, we're going to take our first commercial break, and we're going to come back and deal with some other aspects of your journey at Tennessee State University. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. Glenda Glover, the president of Tennessee State University, and she's given us some information in reference to her background, education, and experiences. And now she will talk about coming to Tennessee State University. Some of the individuals that she met at Tennessee State University had influence upon her, and how she was able to achieve academically at the institution at a time when many people felt that these kinds of institutions were not doing what they ought to do. Talk about it from that perspective.
Well, from an HBCU perspective, the first thing I had to decide was, am I going to attend HBCU, yes or no? So I made that decision that I wanted to attend HBCU, Historically Black College, and then Tennessee State rose to the top of the list. And then coming here, I met so many wonderful individuals, the faculty, staff. Of course, I have five that always come to mind. Of course, two are deceased now, the two Gassaway sisters, Dr. Sadie Gassaway and Dr. Pearlie Gassaway. But the Williams, Dr. McDonald Williams and Jamie Williams.
They've both been in that seat.
Yes, they now live in Atlanta. And they were so tremendously influential in my life, in my career. I called them as I was doing my inaugural address. I called her and had her assist me with doing some research on it. So that I still talk to them quite frequently. In fact, their daughter-in-law is one of my close friends. And of course, Barbara Merle was there as, she was the vice president, the first vice president, female in the whole system, the TSU, the TBR, Tennessee Board of Regents system. So she's become, she was a close friend of mine too. So those were some of the folk who were influential while I was at TSU, and that who are still living and having fun, not about to do anything. They're not even sick at all. So those were some of the wonderful mentors that that are very, very influential to me.
Have you thought about being the president of Tennessee State University now and sort of incorporating some of the things that you learned under their leadership in reference to dealing with faculty and staff and students now? Has that had any impression on you at all?
Well, the fairness aspects, you know, you pick up in the fairness and you want to make sure you operate with a strong sense of integrity at all times. Well, I noticed that there was an element of fairness about Dr. McDonald Williams in our honors programs classes, and it was no nonsense. You know, he was, so those are the kind of things, the strict love that, you know, some folks call it tough love, but there's a strictness that you apply as you love and mentor students. So I saw that then, and I see it now in many of the faculty that we have, which is a good thing. And it's very encouraging in terms of being able to replicate that kind of attitude that they had toward your students now. It is, and then you apply some of your own characteristics and traits that you've picked up, you know, in the business world. You know, being a CPA and being a lawyer and an educator, those three work so well together as you at the top leadership position, because you see things with a bigger picture in mind, and you're able to dissect mentally much quicker. So, and I find myself analyzing the smallest the smallest sentence that's brought to me when it comes to finances. So that is very important, because as you know, many of our universities are looking for additional funds. So we have to make sure you can quickly make decisions about how to best employ the funds that we have.
And you think that the very fact of you being an accountant as well as a lawyer helped to enhance your ability to be able to deal with some of the problems?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. As an auditor, I know that most problems are not so much from breaking the law or misappropriating or doing acting in an inappropriate manner, is not knowing the rules in the first place. I think the legal profession has made me learn how to read rules and laws more closely and understand them much better. And of course, the accounting profession, which is the language of business, so because it made me understand business and the business aspects of being a president.
And so all of those things really came together for you coming to Tennessee State University as the president of Tennessee State University. What did you think in terms of first being selected and then finally selected as president of the Tennessee State of the United States, that you might stand there. But what did you think in terms of when that happened to you?
It was so much excitement in my family, because it was a process that took, I would say, about 2 or 3 months, going through the interviews and meeting various people and getting feedback from the campus, the students, the Board of Regents who ultimately made the selection and took the vote. So I was very pleased and honored to come back now and lead the university that gave me my start. I mean, there's no greater honor, no greater blessing than when God calls you back home.
And there you were at Tennessee State University, selected as the president of that great institution, now to move that institution forward. And you are moving the institution forward according to everything that we see in the newspaper and everywhere else. And when we come back, when we have our second commercial break, what we'd like for you to do is to think in terms of how you are moving the university. That is, some of the principles that you've laid down, and we might, I think in some instances, refer to them as challenges and opportunities, and recognizing that. And that's what we want to talk about. I think that I've heard you on many occasions lay out 5 or 6 points in terms of what you're trying to do in terms of enrollment and et cetera, et cetera. And so that's, I think that our audience would be really concerned in terms of hearing that kind of information and about how you are working hard in a real sense to make sure that students have opportunities, even those students who somehow might not have been doing the things that they ought to do to have that opportunity, but there you are. Yeah, and I think that the community is aware of all of the things, and I want you to talk about that.
Thank you.
Because I think that plays a very, very significant role in terms of how you are able to deal with the university, as well as how you're able to deal with outside of the university, because I think that we've seen in the newspaper a lot of information in reference to who you are and about the not only the groundbreaking activities that you're involved in for historically black institutions, black females, and et cetera, and you are in